So we've done all our blocks. How exciting is that? And now we're going to move on to doing something with some sashing. So on this page here we've finished our blocks, we've mitered them, we've put the little box bit on, and now on our pattern we're down at this section here. So in your cutting notes it's told you what you need to cut, and now we're just going to start. So we've just got 4 little steps here to follow through with the sashing, and then we can join all of the rows of blocks and things together. So on the first instruction here it tells you to join together a sashing post and a strip. Now I've already done it, it's probably very hard for you to see that because it's all in black, and I've pressed my seam into the longer strip. So there's 6 of those, and then on number 2 it says to attach a strip to the lower side of 3 of the blocks, so 2 stripe blocks and a spot block. And that's because when we're working on this, if you look at this picture here, we've got the sashing's only in between blocks, it's not around because we've got a narrow border around. So we need, on this row down here, we need a little sashing strip in between those 3, but the lower one doesn't get one. So I've gone ahead and I've already done mine somewhere here. These ones here have got the sashing strip on the lower side of the block, and I've left one that doesn't have any sashing on it at all. So that's that one ready to go. And then we've got here that we need to put a side strip on to 4 stripe and 4 dot blocks. So again, I've gone ahead and done all mine. So here's a stripe block, and we've got the sashing down the side only of that one, and the same with the 4 dot blocks. So they're doing pretty well. And then this last little bit here is to join one of these sashing strips with the sashing post attached already to the lower side of 3 stripe and 3 dot blocks. So 3 each of these. And again, that's because when we join them up into the whole quilt, ready for the borders, the lower ones don't have anything on the lower side. So it's just all these in-between shapes. So that's going to get put on to the lower side. Hard to hold that way. So that you can start to see how it's going to work. And so they're still working as blocks, so that I just find, for me, that's an easier way to put things together with sashing. And you may wonder why I've chosen to put that sashing post in, even though it's the same colour, and not make a longer strip. Well, you could make a longer strip, but I personally prefer to have that extra seam line. Everything just lines up that much better when you're sewing across and things. And the fact that it's the same colour will pretty much disappear when we do all the quilting. So that's, I'm going to go ahead and do my blocks like that now and get them all joined up into that central block so that we can start talking about the borders. So that's the sashing. Let's get it all sashed. So I've been busy putting my rows together with the sashings between. So this is the bottom row. As we look at the quilt picture here, this bottom row has no sashing on the bottom of it. So that's that row. And it's going to join to the next row, which now has sashing in between. And then that will join to the next row, which again has the sashing in between. So you can see how this is all working out quite nicely now, and the same with that top row. So that's pretty much all the sashing. Once that's all put together, then we're ready to start measuring to cut for borders. So I've got the quilt top together, ready for the borders. So all that centre part, we've got the sashing in between. And now we need to start measuring for borders. So the cutting instructions suggested some widths that you could cut for your border fabrics. And the first one is just this narrow, it's the black, the background that we've used here, just a narrow strip all the way around, and that just helps set the blocks off nicely away from any other distractions of the other fabrics. And then there's a couple of other borders. There's this nice leafy green one, and then there's these amazing critters and bugs and things that we've got coming up later on. So first of all, we just need to work out what size or what length to cut. So we're going to add the borders. Like in this picture here, I've got the borders all separated out. So what we do is put the 2 opposite sides on first, and we start with the sides, and then we come right the way across the full length with the sides on for the top and the bottom. And then again we'll do the green sides, and then the top and bottom all the way across, and then again with the outside border. So I suggest that you measure. We can calculate what it should be. We know that the blocks finish at 8.5 inches. We know that the sashing finishes at 1.5. So you could work out the measurement that it should be, which, as it happens, should measure including the seam allowance that we've got in there, it should measure 39 inches, but we all sew a little bit differently, so there's no knowing what it's actually going to measure, and it's the actual measurement that we need because we want the borders to fit our quilt. So I would suggest that you measure not so much along the actual edges because things can move a little bit and be a little bit wavy, but somewhere more inside the quilt. And oops, that's 39 inches. And I suggest you take a couple of measurements, and if they're different, then you can just take an average of those because things just move. Fabric's a very soft commodity and things give and take a little bit. So I suggest that you take a couple of measurements. If they're different, take the average of that. So if you had a 40 and you had a 39, it would be 39.5. So that's somewhere in the middle. As it happens, these are both 39 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my two side borders, and these don't need joining or anything, to be 39 inches. So then I'm going to sew those on the length that I need, and then I'm going to on both sides, and then I'll be doing the same thing with the measuring. Once the side borders are on, I'll be measuring right across to include both the side borders, so that then we know how long to cut the top and the bottom border. And I'm going to continue on adding the borders in that manner. So sides first, then the top and bottom, measure again, sides first, measure again, top and bottom, and so it goes on until you've got all three borders on. So that's what I'm up to next.